So the third city was called Amsterdam. Um, a lot of cities in New York are named after different countries and different states. So there's Florida, there's Mexico, there's Amsterdam. A lot of, and these are cities that you could serve in. But it was interesting because this city was made up of, I want to say, 70 to 80% were Puerto Rican. And so you'd be walking around, doing your thing, trying to talk to people. And so you'd go and say, oh, great weather. Or, you just try and talk with anybody about anything. And so you talk to them and they talk back to you and it'd be great. And then you'd say, oh, well, we're missionaries. We just have a quick message. And then they'd say, oh, no habla inglés. After talking to you for 10 minutes in a conversation, they'd say, oh, we don't speak English, essentially. And then they'd run away. And so not knowing Spanish, because we were English-speaking missionaries, very rarely did Spanish-speaking missionaries go to my mission. We couldn't do anything, because they would say they couldn't speak English and they would walk away. But you knew that they were able to speak English. And so that was a very interesting thing. That happened probably 5 times a day. We'd run into people like that. And so it's by a river is where it's kind of located. And so I remember one time that a tornado actually went through our area. It was a very tiny tornado, but you could see the path of the tornado, that trees in that area had been knocked down, and then it jumped over the river, and then it just kept on going. And so with that tornado, there was a lot of floods that happened from the river. I remember we went with a member to go see a less active, and we were driving, and the water that we were driving in had flooded the road, and it went up to like the floorboard of this little car. And so as you're driving, it's spraying up around you. And so I thought Utah had unpredictable weather, and then I went to New York. It was a very interesting period. There was one family that made a lot of progress. They were semi-active. The father, he worked as a correctional officer, and so he had to work Sundays and things like that. And so the mom was a convert to the church, and he grew up in the church. But it was really difficult because of how busy they were to come to church. But I remember that we just tried to meet with them, and there was a power that came when they did family home evening, because that was our goal is, we don't want to teach them anything because they know a lot of it. It's hard for them to get back. And so what we tried is we would go over Monday nights and have family home evening, and we wouldn't teach the lesson, the mom would, and the kids would be in church of prayers. And that taught me the power of family home evening, because that brought such a spirit into the home. They were, a very crazy, chaotic family with such a busy work schedule. But when they did that, you could see a difference in their life. Even though it wasn't church, it wasn't them, praying or, those things that we talk about in church. But family home evening was a huge thing for them. And so that eventually led to them finding ways to come back to church. And then I left, and I would talk to them, and they were still doing family home evening. And so even though they weren't doing everything they should have, that helped them and was, something that they could do. And so that was a huge blessing in their life. Another experience I remember, we got a call from a member down in New York City. She called us and she said, oh, my sister, she's been meeting with the missionaries, and I would love for you to meet her. She's actually moving to your area. And so in my mission, for my experience, HQ referrals, where people, you get an HQ referral from Salt Lake, were all ridiculous. I remember contacting one where a guy was, they had a bet, and whoever lost the bet had to contact the Mormon missionaries and have the Mormon missionaries come and teach them at their house, which was a very awkward experience for everyone. The guy answered the door, and he basically said, yeah, it was a bet. I lost the bet. You don't have to teach me if you don't want to. And we're like, do you want to know? And he's like, no, I have no interest of doing anything with it. And we're like, okay, will you listen? He's like, no, just give it to me 3 minutes. So when we first got this referral, say, my sister's coming up, we're thinking, oh, great, here's another one, too good to be true. And so we went over, and it was just like this golden opportunity. Like, she had been listening to the missionaries down there. It was true. She was interested. And so as we were talking, her daughters were there. Her daughters were probably in their 30s, so she was an older lady, and they had children. And so as we were talking, we tried to involve everybody, and we asked one of the daughters, to pray. And she's like, I don't know how to pray. And we said, well, we'll teach you. We taught her how. And it turns out she had said that not because she didn't know how to pray, but because she was a member that had been less active, that just didn't feel comfortable. And so in the process of teaching the mother, we were able to help the daughter also return. And it was just really cool the way that God is able to take care of those that he loves. And so because I had just gotten there, I was probably there at this point for a month and a half at this point when we met them. And so about 2 months into this area, we were talking about getting baptized and, setting all the details. And so there was an elder there who had been there for probably the past 5 months, long time. My mission president switched people out very quickly. And so we were saying he's probably going to leave. We don't know. And so they're like, oh, okay, well, will you baptize us? And talking to myself, and I was like, yeah, sure, fine, But then the week before the baptism, we got transfer calls, and I was transferred. And so I wasn't able to be a part of the baptism. But it was a very neat experience to be able to see her to grow, and then the daughter to come back, and then the second daughter to become interested and stuff like that. So those are what I can remember from the third area.